Okay, so I want to expound on what Tucker is saying right here. This is the Man Behind the Mic show. If you are new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. We are definitely new here. This is a startup, but we're gonna bring you all our best, and we're gonna get better as we go. But I just want to take a moment here and expound on what Tucker is saying because he is saying a lot. And I'm gonna put this in layman's terms, but I'm gonna let him go ahead and say it first.
But here's the truth and something you should keep in mind over the next few years. The United States, two things to keep in mind. The United States is moving, not inexorably, but still moving toward civil war, number one. And number two, civil wars are the very worst kind of wars, worse than any kind of war fought against a foreign adversary. So, to number one, why is America moving towards civil war? For the same reason all countries that wind up in civil war get there, because the differences between their population, between people within their borders, becomes too great to bear. People just
Notice what he just said here. He says the differences between the people within the border become too great to bear. The thing I want people to try to begin to understand that to have a country is to have a group of people who all share similar beliefs in regards of way of living, morality, things of that nature. Many times religion. You get what I'm saying? There's a religious foundation to every country, and there's a religious foundation to this country. But unfortunately, we have a radical left sect that is spreading divisiveness into the country. And see, the people don't understand why the migrant crisis is so bad because America is founded upon principles, right? But when you bring in all of these different belief systems and you have a constitution that does amend free speech, and it says all free speech is free, which I don't personally believe you should be allowed to sow discord freely without penalty. I myself personally don't believe that. But what Tucker is alluding to is that when you let all these people in with all these diverse opinions, beliefs, cultures, ways of life. You get what I'm saying? In certain countries, the age limit to consensual sex is different. Their belief systems are different. Their culture is different. Their way of life is different. And of course, they would want to come here to benefit off the fat of the land and, prosper. But what is the trade off? What is the trade off here? And that's the point. They are not leaving their way of life behind. They're only leaving their country behind. And so when we allow an influx of that, you have all these differences of opinion, and then you have a progressive sect who is in political power somewhat. Republicans are in power at the time, but they have a voice. The Democrats still have a voice, and they are allowed to sow discord. You get what I'm saying? And they promote this. So this is why Tucker is saying that inevitably, if we don't stomp this out, this is gonna be a problem come long term. But I'm gonna let Tucker get back to it.
side, I have nothing in common with people who live near me, and I don't want to live near them anymore. In other words, diversity, difference, is actually intolerable to most people. Not necessarily racial diversity, though sometimes that too, but diversity of all kinds. It is not our strength. In fact, it is, without question, our weakness, and it has always been. If you have nothing in common with your wife, do you have a stronger marriage? No, of course your marriage falls apart. And the same is true for countries. And the truth about the United States is that on every level, beginning with a demographic level, the American population has less in common with itself, with one another, than ever before. When I was born, which wasn't that long ago, it was the modern era. It was air travel and air conditioning, electricity. When I was born, the United States was about 90% white Christian. It's now less than 40% white Christian. Now, you may think that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a massive change, an unprecedented change, really, in a very short period of time. And of course, it's not accidental or organic. That was the result of policies put in place to achieve that result, and they did. There are people.
So, what he said there is powerful. Remember what I said earlier, that this country was founded upon Christian principles, right? And that's what Charlie Kirk, God bless the living, that's what his message was to the youth. Let's return back to our foundational principles, and then we can return back to our foundational glory. Of course, there were adjustments that need to be made because not everyone was on board. And this alludes to everyone who thinks they're on the right side of history in being a Democrat. You get what I'm saying? I would encourage you and implore you to go do your a deep dive into the history of the Democrat Party. I'll say this really quickly. The Lord says in his word that the devil is alive from the beginning. So if you go back and look at the history of the Democrat Party and then the history of the Republican Party, you tell me which one you think was the devil from the beginning. And I'm going to just leave it at that. But what Tucker is saying is profound, because guess what he's going to later on allude to? There is no majority in this country. And where you don't have, and that means this country has no identity. I'm a huge football fan, you know what I'm saying? And the biggest thing that they will say about a team that is struggling is that they don't have an identity as a team. They're saying that about the Philadelphia Eagles right now. What is their identity? They don't have an identity as a team. And it kind of even though they're winning, it kind of makes it look like, hey, how long is this going to last? This is headed into disaster because there's dysfunction. You get what I'm saying? And our country is in a similar state. And that's what Tucker is driving home here. That's the part that he's driving home. We need to get back on board with each other, with reality, with God. But unfortunately, like I said, we have a radical left cult who wants to make this a godless nation. And we don't want this to be a godless nation. Woe unto us if this becomes a godless nation. Back to Tucker.
People who didn't want a majority white Christian country. Okay, they got what they wanted. But what do they have? They have a country with no majority demographically at all. There is no American majority, which is to say 51% of people have something very basic in common. And so what you have is an inherently fractured country. Languages, religions, ethnicities, backgrounds, beliefs, too innumerable to catalog. And so a country like that, unless unified by something, will split apart, particularly when that country is the size of a continent and is held together by a pretty fragile web of infrastructure, air routes and highways. And so unless you are very self-conscious about keeping it together physically, but also spiritually, explaining to people why they should have any regard at all, much less any obligation to people in, say, the next town, much less the next state, unless you do that self-consciously, unless you inculcate a sense of national identity, it will by nature fall apart. That is a physics principle, entropy. It'll blow up unless you hold it together.